The ACLU stands for American Civil Liberty Unions. And of course, me having to go back and do a little research. Toby knows everything in the world about it. But I was very surprised about some of the things and how it got started. And I'll give you a little bit of the history. I don't know if y'all are going to, but y'all can. It started in the 20s. After World War, one of our generals started rounding up everybody who he thought might be a communist sympathizer, rather. So the ACLU was a small group of people. There was a very famous Alabamian who is one of the founding members. Anybody know who that is? Helen Keller is one of the founding members. Blew my mind. So from that small group, they started fighting for the people's rights who were being rounded up without subpoenas or any real reason. And then when it really started taking off, I believe, if I read this correctly, was after World War II, or during World War II. Well, there were trials in between, but when we got to World War II, they were one of the few people who they fought against. They fought the U.S. government against the internment camps. And now, as we know from history, it was probably the right thing to do. Their ideas and what their beliefs are were not always popular, but they managed to, most all the time, be on the right side of fighting for our rights. One of the things that this little, one of the articles that I had here on their history was, I'm going to read it to you because I thought it made so much sense. It says, the ACLU has evolved in the years since from this small group of idealists into the nation's premier defender of the rights enshrined in the Constitution. With more than 1.7 million members, 500 staff attorneys, thousands of volunteer attorneys, and offices throughout the nation, the ACLU continues to fight government abuse and to vigorously defend individual freedoms, including speech and religion, a woman's right to choose, the right to due process, citizens' rights to privacy, and much more. So that pretty much is a lot of what the Democrat Party believes in as well. They were involved in the Snopes trial, Brown versus Brown. They were very active all the way through. It's a great little recap. If you go on their website, it tells you, not a very long article, but tells you some of the things they have done over the years. So one of the things that we talked about last meeting, Toby brought this up, is what can we do in regards to Project 2025? And I think we talked a little bit, there's a bunch of groups all over the country, one of them being the ACLU, that already has a plan going. And this is another article, it was just published on July 11th. You can easily Google it, or I can send you the link or whatever. And they're calling this the Trump on Surveillance, Protest, and Free Speech Memo, which includes their roadmap, a brief roadmap of what they're doing to protect our First and Fourth Amendments and how they're doing it, and spells it out through litigation, through mobilizing public support of federal policy and state and local advocacy. And one of the ways these guys are here is going to be talk to us how we can mobilize and how we can support them and how we can fight against Project 2025. So without anything else, Sam Duff. Sam is a voting rights strategist from the ACLU in Montgomery, and Kenya Shavers, who bought 3 pairs of new earrings in our town already today. It's the first thing she asked me, where can I buy earrings? Got you, girl.
Support local.
I agree, I know. That's right.
Well, all right, can you all hear us?
Wow, look at there.
I love it. Well, I promise you all, we won't hold you all long. I am Samuel Duff, voting rights and policy strategist with the ACLU of Alabama. This is my colleague, Kenya Shavers, serves as our voting rights coordinator. And we are here just to break down just a little bit of information with you all about Project 2025, ways to get involved and engaged with getting people to the polls, because it's going to take all of us in order to make that happen. So thank you once again, Ms. Paula, for that lovely introduction. And so we're going to go ahead and jump right into it, okay? Is that okay with you all? Perfect. So as we begin, I think one thing that we really have to focus on is just the state of our nation right now. And in all honesty, I guess it's safe to say we're sort of in a state of flux right now with everything that's going on within the community, from the events that happened on Saturday. There's a lot that is at stake, and there's a lot that is happening at a very rapid rate. And so from that, we want to make sure that people are engaged and involved within this political process, because there is so much that is at stake right now that we need to fight to protect. We see it with different things that are happening in the community right now with Project 2025. And I had a great conversation with Ms. Paula earlier when we talked about Project 2025 and what's actually happening with that. One thing that we see is that a lot of people just don't know. A lot of people just don't know that Project 2025 even exists. And so we need to be able to reach people where they are, to give them that accurate information. Key on accurate, because Project 2025 does a lot that is focused on stymieing our ability to really exercise our right to vote. It's getting rid of certain jobs at the government level, over 11 million jobs, over 11 million people who are undocumented immigrants are looked to be deported here within Project 2025. So we're looking to combat these elements that are at play right now, because everything hinges on what happens on November 5th. Everything hinges upon that. And so we need people who are engaged and involved, and we need people that are mobilized in order to get them to the polls, so we won't be able to see Project 2025 coming to fruition. Because there are certain things right now that are already in place in Alabama that are already being pushed through the legislative pipeline. Certain bills like Senate Bill 1, which criminalizes absentee ballot voting, specifically on the application, which classifies you providing a person providing a gift to you, and you obtaining or pre-filing a specific voter registration form and delivering that. They can be classified as Class B and Class C felonies, punishable up to 20 years in prison. They're equating that bill to rape, statutory rape, manslaughter, just for helping a person out to be able to exercise their right to vote. But these are nothing but tactics. It is known, what we know at the ACLU, as the chilling effect. It's nothing but a scare tactic that's designed to keep people from exercising their right to vote. It's a voter suppression tactic. And so that's why we need you all involved. We need you all to help us in our process of getting people to the polls, because Alabama doesn't have a voter registration problem, because Alabama has over 5 million people. About 3.7, 3.8 million people are actually registered to vote. So within the voting age population, that's about 93%. So a large part of the constituency are registered to vote. It's the turnout. If we looked at the turnout within Alabama, it is abysmal. And that is from a whole host of ranges why people will choose not to exercise their right. But again, it is intentional. The reason why people are putting these laws and bills into place to keep you from being involved in the political process. And that, with the ACLU, is what we're looking to combat. And our focus and intent is to get people to the polls. And so with that, I'm actually turning over to my colleague, Ms. Kenya Shavers, who's going to do a good breakdown of what we have planned to get people to the polls. So Kenya, the floor is yours.
Very great. Thank you so much, Sam. Can y'all hear me? Again, my name is Kenya Shavers. I am the voting rights coordinator at the ACLU. Born and raised in Montgomery, Alabama, and I always say that I grew up organizing. In Montgomery, that's just what you do, right? You fight for what you believe in, you organize, you show up, you organize your family, you organize your friends, and you go vote. You don't have a choice. I remember the first time, well, not the first time, because I grew up always going to the polls. But one of my first or most prominent memories of going to the polls was in 2008 when President Obama was on the ballot. And I may have been like 9 or 10, 11 or 12, somewhere in there. And I remember my mom waking us up at 4 a.m., my brother and I. She woke us up at 4 a.m. We were dressed and ready to go out of the door by 5 a.m. We were standing at the polls for about 2 hours, of course, because the polls didn't open until 7 a.m. And my mom made us stand there in the rain, in the cold, and I didn't understand then what was happening and why she made me do that, but I now understand. This is also the same mother that made me go to school that same day, and gave me a snack and told me to get to class. And so those are the memories. Those are the roots that I think so many of not just our young folks, but generations far and wide have lost the essence and the importance of what it is to vote and why we vote, why we show up, why we turn out, what's at stake. My grandfather, who also was a great advocate for being sure that we were civically engaged growing up, and also being sure that we understood what it meant to be civically engaged. It wasn't just about going to the polls to vote and circle in Democrat or Republican. It was about going to the polls and deciding what type of life we wanted to live. It was about deciding whether or not we were going to have access to clean water, access to food, access to health care. And again, I believe that is the difference between what we see now in voter turnout and what I grew up in, the conversations that were happening at the dinner table. And so I'm very grateful to have had the opportunity to be working with the ACLU. And we call ourselves Freedom's Watchdog. Because we believe that it is our responsibility and the weight is on our shoulders, not just the folks who are employed with the ACLU, but all of you who donate, all of you who show up, all of you who support, all of you who go to the polls. That same weight that is on my shoulders every single day when I go to work should also be on your shoulders. And so it is all of our job to be sure that we are working as freedom's watchdog, to be sure that in 10, 15, 20, 30 years, we find ourselves on the right side of history. We find ourselves on the right side of progress. And so our goal at the ACLU, in lieu of the ridiculous voter turnout across the state, as Sam mentioned, we have seen traditionally anywhere from about 25 to 37% in a primary and general election year. Again, that is wild when we have 3.8 million registered voters across the state. And in Alabama alone, black and brown voters only showed up at about 17% across the state. And so just that is mind-boggling, right? That across this state, we only had 22% in the primary, and only 17% of black and brown folks showed up to the polls. And so with Project Move, before we even, before Project 2025 was clickbait, we were already working on Project Move. We were already building Project Move. And again, this is a multi-year, nonpartisan effort to be sure that voters understand and are educated about what it means to get to the polls and have access to the ballot in a free and fair way. And so we have built out this really beautiful plan, if I may say so myself, this really beautiful multi-year plan to be sure that we don't just go and knock on folks' doors and call their phone when it's time for election year, but that we build an infrastructure. We build a strong infrastructure across this state so that folks know who they can call, who they can lean on to get information about what's happening at the local, state, and federal level in this state. And so, again, Project Move. We have broken it down into a few different primary issues. And so in front of you, you all have a one-pager of the program and kind of what this looks like. Again, we realize that Alabama does not have a voter registration problem. We are registered at about 93% across this state. We have a voter turnout problem. Again, 93% registered, 37% turnout. And we don't anticipate that we'll see any more than about 40% across the state, Democrats, Republicans. We don't anticipate that we will see any more than about 42% turnout across the state. And so Our goal is that whether you are white, black, brown, pink, or purple, Democrat or Republican, that you understand that you have a right to vote, that voting is essential to your lifestyle, and regardless of where you are in the state, what community you live in, where you're from, and where I'm from, my folks say no matter what side of the tracks you're from, that you know that there is a ballot that you are responsible for. And so we've broken down Project Move into a few different primary tactics in the way that we are going to be engaging voters across the state. First things first is our issue mining effort. Has anyone ever heard of issue mining? Okay, I see a few hands. Very good. And so the thought of issue mining is that because ACLU works to lean into integrated advocacy, we want to be sure that we don't go into communities and just tell folks what they need and just tell folks what's happening, right? We know that in certain counties and in certain cities across this state that folks have really big issues, right? Whether that's not having access to a grocery store for 30 or 20 miles, or hospital for 30 or 45 minutes, or clean water. There are communities who have sewage running through their pipes right now in this state. We know that already. We understand that. But what we want to be sure with our issue mining efforts is that community members, voters across this state are informing us about what's happening, right? That they are telling us, yeah, I do have a problem with clean water. Yeah, I haven't been to the polls in 3, 4, 5 years because I'm worried about being able to take care of my kids and feed my kids for the summer. I'm worried about being able to get my kids to a good school, so I'm working 2 or 3 jobs to make sure that they're taken care of, to make sure that they have an adequate education, right? We want those stories, we want those truths of voters to be shared with us so that we can then come back and do what we call community care, which is the second point on your one-pager. Our constituency support efforts, again, community care, looks like us being able to take that data, take that information, take those stories, take all of what we've learned from voters across the state, and then be able to provide some real resources in real time. So again, that looks like us going back to those communities and being like, hey, we heard you don't have a grocery store, so we brought you some farmers. They've got fresh fruits and vegetables for you. Come talk to us, right? People don't want to talk to you about voting when they have real issues. And that was something I saw a lot of while I was working in Georgia on the Stacey Abrams campaign. A lot of voters would not talk to me because they have to pay their light bill. Their baby needs diapers, right? They don't care about voting. They don't want to talk about voting because they don't see where it directly affects their everyday lives. They don't see where, even if they do go to the polls, how does it help me? How does this help solve the issue that I'm dealing with right now? And so, again, our goal is to be sure that we help close some of those gaps. We know that we won't be the answer to all things. We are not the Lord. We are not all things to all people. But we do know that we have some resources. We have some community partners. And it is our goal, and it's our plight that we would be sure to go in and, again, provide some of those resources to folks that need it the most. And then after we have gone in, help fill some of those gaps, we got to get out to vote, right? We got to get them to the polls. That's the goal here. Again, our goal is to increase voter turnout by 5% across the state between now and 2028. So as Larry was talking about how Alabama can be a purple state, we absolutely believe that. And so, again, our goal is to be sure that the work that we do at little old ACLU, the benefits that we reap is that we'll see voter turnout increased by 5% between now and 2028. And so that's where we go into our Get Out the Vote effort. And we just educate folks, right? Let them know what's on the ballot. Educate them about the candidates. Educate them about their issues and their platforms. Again, ACLU was a large part of the Milligan versus Merrill litigation with Congressional District 2, the new minority congressional district in South Alabama. And so we want to be sure that voters are educated about the fact that this is happening. There are many who are not. There are many who don't understand what a congressional district even is, right? And so our goal is to be sure that we let folks know at the basic level, what is a congressional district? What are they going to do when they get into office? What does a new congressional district mean for me? What does a new congressional district mean for my family? And so get out the vote. And through all of that, that's where all of you come in. Not only do we need you to get to the polls, not only do we need you to go and vote, but we need you to continue to be involved, and we need you to bring people with you. How many of us know someone or have known someone who does not vote, who says they don't care about voting, they don't know, hands, all the things, right? Those are the people we should be talking to. Those are the people we should be having conversations with. Those are the people we should be calling and checking on them and building relationships with. It might be frustrating at first, right? Because you're like, why don't you get it? Why don't you just go to the polls? Like, why don't you just exercise your right? But those are the folks that we have to build relationships with. We often say that we want to be able to use trust as currency. And the only way that people are going to buy into the fact that we need them to go to the polls, that this is not an option, that the urgency of now, is that they trust us. And the only way people trust you is if you build a relationship with them. You spend time with them. You have a conversation with them. You figure out why they're not going to vote. Why do you feel this way? Why are you frustrated about the political process? Why are you not civically engaged? Whether that's voting for president or voting for your mayor or your county commissioner. Why not? And so, again, our ladder of engagement is where we need all of you to help us make phone calls across this state, talking to voters, getting them out, helping recruit volunteers. Our goal is to be able to recruit 100 volunteers across the state in this election cycle between now and November. That is a hefty goal. But I know that there are 100 people across this state who feel the same way we do about the fact that we have to get to the polls, we have to vote. And if we don't, then our democracy is at stake. Our freedoms are at stake. And this country, as we know it, is at stake. And so I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you all for taking the time to talk to us today. And I think we're going to open up for some questions about Project Move. I know a lot of you will want to talk about Project 2025. However, we are not experts on Project 2025 because our goal is to implement Project Move. And so, again, thank you all for being here. Thank you all for having us. And thank you. Yeah.
All right, I understand what you're saying about Project Move, but there's two things that is not said enough in this state. You know, LGBTQIA plus and abortion rights. Okay, so what are y'all doing to close that gap?
Yeah, so ACLU of Alabama, which has been around since 1965, we focus on gender justice, which is our LGBTQ efforts, and healthcare, maternal health, and reproductive rights, and then of course our criminal legal reform and voting rights. And so those are the four pillars. And oh, okay, we can just like toss it back and forth. Okay. And so again, criminal justice reform, gender justice, reproductive rights, and our voting rights work. All of that ties in, right? Our voting rights work is not just about getting people to the polls. It's about being sure that we articulate to voters that the right to be able to be whoever you choose to be is on the ballot. The right to be able to have a child the way you want to have it or not is on the ballot. And so our work ties all into all of that. We have a reproductive rights organizer who is on the ground and who worked very closely on the IVF litigation. So we kind of helped, she was very hands-on in helping stop that.
Yes.
So shout out to Courtney Andrews, our reproductive rights organizer. And then again, our gender justice work.
Well, the reason I asked that is because I have a gay, my daughter's gay. And literally the first thought when Trump got in there this first time was, where are we going to have to move to make sure she has the rights that she has? And I mean, I'm not kidding. And then my gay best friend, it's like, that's not a thought that I want to have. I want to stay where I'm at, not have to go and protect my child because they can't be who they was born to be.
Yeah.
So that's just a thing that I think is a big thing, because now they're trying to mess with the trends and they're trying to, it's just, it's not right.
Yeah. And our hope is that as we have the 200,000 conversations across the state that we aim to have between now and November, that those issues will come up, so that we can, again, help provide resources, help provide information and education to voters about what it looks like to be LGBTQ in this country and how you combat the policies that don't agree with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering specifically with your work, if the ACLU's guidance as far as like getting people to the polls is changing as Alabama sort of criminalizes voting, and all the ways that I used to bus with multiple people to the polls for various things. They're lower level than federal, but that can't be legal right now.
It is.
Is it?
It is legal. Do you want to?
You got the fire. Go ahead.
Yeah, so what I heard was, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I heard was for years you've been busing folks across the state to and from the polls, and because of SB1, you're worried that is now illegal, correct?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. That is not illegal currently. You can still bus as many people. If you've got 500 people you want to take to the polls on election day, please take them. What SB1 says, and right now it is in, we are in, I don't know. I was going to say where we are in the court case, but maybe I'm not supposed to say that.
It's in litigation, right?
It's in litigation. But currently, SB1 does not criminalize the rides to the polls. It only criminalizes absentee ballot applications. It doesn't even criminalize the help with the ballot. It criminalizes the help with the absentee ballot applications. It is a myth per this bill. It is a myth that ballot harvesting is running rampant across the state. That is not true. There are very few instances. As a matter of fact, there are about 3 or 4 random off, kill instances where we have seen ballot harvesting, but that is not a large issue. And so SB1, again, to answer your question, criminalizes absentee ballot applications, but not the rides to the polls. So please keep taking people to the polls.
Yes, I just want to caveat off of that, off of what Kenya just said. So there are about 20 since the year 2000. There's about 20 cases of quote unquote ballot harvesting, voter fraud, whatever you want to say. And the last case was by a Republican lawmaker, David Cole. So it's so let's go ahead and dispel that myth that is there. That, in all honesty, that's more of a blatant lie that is being pushed within the narrative that's getting people to think that that's an actual issue, but it is not. And so these are the type of things that we're really working to combat here. This misinformation that's being put out, because that also leads to people going down a rabbit hole of information that just isn't true. Yeah. And so with that, that's why we're so involved with getting people engaged so they can have that accurate information, so we can combat that apathy that lies there, so we can increase the number of people that actually go to the polls, so they'll be able to make their voices heard there.
And lastly, I hate to beat a dead horse, but lastly, I want to just name the fact that earlier we talked about the chilling effect. And legal practitioners use this term when talking about how certain entities, organizations, powers that be, put things in place to put fear so that you won't do a certain thing.
Scare tactics.
That's exactly what just happened, right? So you are now experiencing the chilling effect. I just wanted to name that. And again, don't stop doing what you're doing. Thank you for all of the work that you're doing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I want to know what you find or what you hear when you find out that Alabamians are not voting. Do you know why they're not voting?
Yes. So there.
Don't say it.
So there's a few reasons why Alabamians don't vote, and I think number one, one of the biggest areas of that is that apathy again. People just don't feel like they're involved with the process, so they choose not to go to the polls and exercise that right. Another one is voter education as well. A lot of people we're working to basically break down what each representative does at what level, because a lot of people just may not have the accurate information about who does what. So that's what we're trying to focus on as well. I mean, we just putting it out there. The president can't fix the pothole that's in your street, you know. To get people more involved within the process, and because a lot of people say, you know what, voting it just doesn't affect me, and so I like to give the example of your public service commission, right? So I come from Kotopa, Alabama. Anybody here heard of Kotopa? Okay.
Yes, it's not far from Mississippi, and there's 150 people who live there.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn. We had that conversation earlier. Thank you for letting me know. Y'all, we're locked in. So with that, but the median income from where I'm from, Kotopa, Alabama, Sumter County, Alabama, is about $23,000. So not a lot of people make a lot of money, and that's just the facts down there. And so when a person says, well, you from my county or counties that are similar to Sumter County, when a person says, you know, voting doesn't affect me, I said, well, let me ask you this. What do you think about your public service commission? Because these are the same people that control your light bill, your gas, your water bill. And if you're making $24,000, that's affecting you on the daily. That's affecting you over your entire course of your life. And so with that, when I break it down like that and show them how it directly affects you, and the people that actually are setting these rates for you are people that you vote in, you're able to have their ear a little bit more because you're finding a way to relate it back to what they are facing. My mom and my dad always tell me people don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. And so that's what we're trying to do with the ACLU is meet people where they are, give them information, information that they can do something with, so they can feel like they are part of the political process because they are. It is about us as a community, not us in silos, but us as a community working and living together in our communities.
Well, one thing I would like to say to everybody here, and I've honestly never been very politically active on my own until now, but especially in Alabama. As a Democrat, I don't have anybody to vote for. Other than
Yeah.
Terry Sewell, and she's not in my district.
Yep. Yep.
So, but what I have done is, because I'm from Montgomery and Elmore County, and is to go online and find out who my representatives are in the state, log on to their websites and get their newsletters and find out what they are doing, folks, because you may not like it. And
That's right.
email them and let them know that. But here's the thing. If I either try to call or email, and I'm very quick to let them know that I live in this state, I have my whole life, and yes, I do vote, and what they are doing does not represent me as their constituent. And they need to hear that, not just because we're Democrat or Republican, but because they may be doing something that does not make any sense. Like, there was a bill to put a $10 raise every prescription, $10 every month. Every drug, every prescription you take would go up $10. And it's like, why? Explain that. But another website that I have run across is Alabama Policy Institute, API.
Yes.
People, they have not got their 2025 agenda out, but their blueprint, it's called the Blueprint for Alabama for 2024. The session is almost over, and they have accomplished, I think, or gotten, I should have written down the number because it's most of their agenda has passed.
Yeah.
Right under
That's
our
right.
noses.
Yeah.
And we need to be aware of what they're doing and let them know.
Right.
And maybe they'll sooner or later pay attention. But it takes, otherwise, if they don't think we care, yeah, they're gonna go right on.
You follow Alabama Rise?
Uh,
Know that group?
oh, no.
They're, okay, a Rise, they advocate for, they say they're impartial, but they advocate for most of everything we believe in.
Well,
They are
I just-
absolutely nonpartisan.
We all are.
And so are we.
We are.
They are some what we call anchor partners. So we do a lot of very close work with Alabama Rise. I would
just
absolutely.
think it's up to us to let our representatives know that we're keeping up with what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they need to know it, because I think they think we're all idiots and don't care.
Yeah.
And maybe we have been until now.
Yeah.
And, so that's,
I think sometimes if something happens to them, I know you said that they don't see it, but, and I go that, and I always think about this when somebody says they don't get it. I always go back to Ted Kennedy, when his son lost his leg, cancer, he seen that there was kids in there that they was dying because of no insurance. Guess what? Medicaid, I mean, that's where Medicaid came from, you
Yeah.
know, so maybe, because you have seen that have changed. I mean, look at our own governor. She's flip-flopped 15 times from a Republican, Democrat, but she don't know what she is. But I think sometimes I don't like her. I can't stand her, okay? It's not I'm a teacher, and I have seen myself, the minorities, because I've taught at Collinsville and Crossville, 88% Hispanic. All I ever hear is, well, they don't need to come in this country. They take our jobs. I'm sitting here going, no, they don't. They will do jobs you won't do. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'd rather I have a class full of Hispanics is like best, because then parents want those kids to learn. But that's what or my favorite is they get food stamps. They get, because I work for Head Start, they get insurance. No, you don't. Go on the federal government website. 5 years. They have to be in this country before they can get something. They have emergency Medicaid for them. If you break an arm, if you have to have surgery, 5 years, that's even kids. You have to have the Social Security number to get food stamps. Guess what? You can't get those, you can't get fake cards anymore like you used to. But it's the reality. People don't look up stuff. And it's just look it up because you listen to the media too much.
Yeah.
That's true.
Sorry, that gets me fired up on that.
I keep saying you're nonpartisan, but do you often get invited to Republican functions?
It's okay.
We do not often get invited to Republican functions. I did notice.
We saw it.
I did notice. I actually tried to stop by, but they were closed. So it's just a store.
Just a store. Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah. So we try to be sure that we are intentional about telling folks that our efforts are nonpartisan for a few reasons. One, because we are. That too. But one, because we are. But then also, it is not about a Democratic or Republican candidate, right? Take that out of the picture, right? Let's talk about policy.
Yeah.
Let's talk about being sure that we put policies in place that are progressive, and that we want our children and their children to benefit from. It is unfortunate that more often than not, those are progressive and Democratic candidates and values and electeds who have those values. But we do not shy away from having conversations with Republicans or siding with Republicans, because sometimes they've got the answer, just sometimes. Yes, sir. Yes.
I wrote this down about 10 times, so I'm just going to read it. I like what you said about the Hispanics.
Yeah.
We have a Hispanic ministry in Collinsville. The first legal immigrant is my interpreter, and he's a great man. We've seen him come and go. I mean, for 25 years. They're the hardest working people. I'm not saying they're harder working than Americans, but one example is when there was a law, I'm not well educated, and I'm a little nervous standing here. But
I'm nervous too.
so there was a law that was jeopardizing the Hispanics living here, and they took off to Tennessee. Yeah, they took off. And so there had to be people hired in their places to keep the chicken plant going. Let me give you an example of one guy, because my man Solomon was one of the head men at the chicken plant, my interpreter. They hired this guy, and one guy in particular worked 1 week. And at the end of the week, when he got his first paycheck, he quit. I'm talking about a resident here. He quit because he just wanted to get some money to get a tattoo.
Okay.
Another big, well-bodied man was working. He worked like maybe a half a shift. He's bending over, picking up boxes. So I think I'm having a heart attack. So he quit. So they're hard workers. We've had our country's made out of hard workers. Our folks worked. They walked to work. A lot of them did. But anyway, I just wanted to say that. And I got a couple of questions here. I wrote the question down about 4 different ways. I'm going to read it all 4 ways, and maybe it'll make sense.
Let's go for it.
But the first thing is it right for a non-citizen to vote in the United States? It's the simple question, is it right? Should a non-citizen have the right to
I
vote?
think they do it depends on how long they've been living here.
Okay. Well, I mean, just if
And if
one crossed the border, if they swim the river tonight and go vote the next day,
Now, that's what I said, how long have they been living here?
well, they not, they're still not a citizen.
No, but if they've been living here for 10 years and trying
Okay.
to.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yes. I'm sorry, I didn't see
I
you.
came 30 years ago to this country, illegal with my kids. Crossed the border illegal. And take me 6 years, I married with a white man, and I be American citizen. But even I was American citizen, no, legal resident.
Legal resident.
Legal resident. I cannot vote. I cannot vote.
You gotta be a citizen.
But I go to take history class.
Take your test, yeah.
I get a learn United States history, and I get my test, and I became American citizen.
Right.
Now I can vote.
Good.
But now it's not true that illegal can get you cannot get nothing.
Yep.
No any benefits,
I
any
get it.
benefits, no food stamps, no nothing.
Yeah.
When another one when said last week somebody told me the immigrants came to hurting this country, destroying this country, and I said yes, it's one here. They came to this country to destroy, and how I destroy, working hard. Teach my kids all my kids have college degree. Well, not one, but my 3 of them have a college degree, have a really good jobs, business, and it's the way we destroy this country.
Oh, no.
And most,
No, you're doing good.
yeah, no, and
Okay.
people say that immigrants come to destroy this country. No, we came to, because this country is.
We love it's the freedom.
Yeah, and it's immigrants are build this country.
They
Because
from the beginning.
everyone we
We're
are.
all a part of immigration.
I was. I mean, my
But
folks.
like, can I ask you something? You wanted your kids to have a better life, right?
It's the reason I bring my kids.
Okay, and you would have done anything for them to have a better life, right?
Exactly.
If anybody in here does that, I don't have a kid that wouldn't do that, you're lying. And
Yes,
two,
Everybody tell me, oh, you broke the law when you broke.
No,
when
you didn't.
Came illegal.
No, you didn't.
I broke the law, but
no, you
for the reason I bring my kids to better life.
Right. I respect and honor that.
And yeah, and it's why I'm here. It's why a lot of people come. I don't
Okay.
But my man Solomon took an ad at the border, him and his friend, 30 years ago, to make so much money on the farm. I won't call the name. And they got here, and they made them sleep in a barn, and they worked them out in the fields. When it started raining, They brought them out on buses. And when it started raining, they came to the bus, get out of the rain. They said, no, you got to work in the rain. They said, no beer in the barn, no beer. They turned the barn into a dormitory, no beer. When they got the crops in, a guy showed up that night with a case of beer, and the police and the farmer with him said, y'all got to go. So my friend and his buddy had to walk from the farm to Center, Alabama with nowhere to go. And they didn't pay them what they said they'd pay them. Now that's that's the American way, right?
Yeah.
Okay, gonna ask us 1, 2. Are Republicans as friendly to the ACLU as Democrats? If not, why? Don't answer. Is the ACLU more friendly to the Democrats than the Republicans? If so, why? Does the ACLU meet with Republicans as they do with Democrats? If not, why? If not, is it because Republicans do not have the same values as the Democrats?
Yep.
I'm sitting there.
So to answer your question kind of in one whop, and then I'll pass it to Sam because he does a lot of work with both sides.
I'm sorry.
We absolutely meet and work with Democrats and Republicans, particularly in the state house during legislative session. And when we're out of session, we're still having those conversations. We're still building those relationships. As I mentioned earlier, we try to implement trust as our currency. And it is not about Democrat or Republican, especially in a Republican state house. In order for us to get anything done, we have to have some Republican friends. So to answer your question, yes, we do meet with Republicans. They are not always kind to us, but there are some who are very kind to us, and we respect them very much. And whether they're kind to us or not, we still show up to work and try to get the policy moved.
Why is the difference? Why do you seem to be more accepting of the Democrats than the Republicans?
Because we're smarter.
Do you want me to answer? Do you want?
I'll take that.
So with the work that we do, we're focused on serving the communities. And when we serve in the communities, we see it we understand it where it's coming from both sides. So with us, our focus and our intent, once again, is to work within the state house so that everyone within the state of Alabama can be affected in the right way. Because for us, it's not about Republican or Democrat. It's about doing what's best for the people that live here within this state. And so that's what we're focused on. We put partisan politics to the side because in order for us to be efficient in our work, we can't align ourselves with who's Democrat or who's Republican. We're
Democrats are getting undone.
Yes, we're here to, in our role, in our capacity, we are only here to serve. We're only
Here to remember what the founding principles of the ACLU is. It is to uphold the Constitution, and one of the big parts is that they fight for is individual rights.
Yes.
And then go from there, right?
Yes.
You're not just
Right,
fighting
sister.
for Democrats, right?
They're not going to be right.
Yeah, we're fighting for everyone.
For human rights.
We're fighting for human rights.
Moreover, again, I want to just drive this point home, y'all. The state house is a Republican state house.
Right.
So in order for us to go to work and move policy through the chambers, and to be able to see policies passed or not passed, right? Ones that we like, ones that we don't like, we have to have some friends on both sides of the aisle. And we're grateful that we do. We're grateful that we've been able to build those relationships and know some of those folks on a first name basis. And they call us, they can email us. So the ACLU has our doors open to every side on both sides of the aisle.
Politics.
That's fine. Exactly. Ms. Bowles.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Yes.
That's correct.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions? We love this.
This is good.
Yes.
We do.
Well, I have one, but
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
why is the goal only to move the percentage of voters only 5% in 2028? That's a goal. Seems like a small goal.
Yeah, it seems like a small goal, but we got to
But
start.
explain, I know you have to start somewhere.
We got to start somewhere. So, this is getting a little deeper into like data analytics. So follow me here. Again, Alabama has 3.7 million registered voters. This year we are going to our pilot project move, right? For how we move the needle between now and 2028. We're going to start with about 1.7 million of those voters in our universe across the state, between congressional districts 2, 5, and 7. Because we see that's where we have highest registration and lowest turnout. And so there are these little pockets across the state in these little counties, again, typically black and brown counties, and some white moderate voters who just don't go to the polls. Again, these are really small counties across the state in congressional districts 2, 5, and 7. And so for those that don't know where 5 is in North Alabama. That's like Madison County and all of that up there, okay? And so we see these little pockets where we've got high voter registration and low turnout. And so the 5% is for us to be able to gauge if our tactics and our plan, our playbook is actually effective. So if we can see between now and 2028 where we've gone into these little pockets and we've done the work, we've implemented this plan that y'all are looking at, if we can do that at 5% in the next 4 years, because it doesn't just take like one election cycle, like there's this is like a 10-year, really, we're talking about 2028. But in essence, in order for us to get to a 15 or 20% increase, that's a 10-year gap, right? That's a 15-year gap. When Georgia turned blue, that was Stacey Abrams working, not just Stacey, but that was, the regime working for 12 years. They had put that plan in place, and we saw that happen over 12 years. And so the 5% is in hopes that between now and 2028, we'll see slow rising, and we'll really be able to analyze that whether or not our tactics and our goals are feasible. Lynn.
Ms. Lynn, you got a question?
So we've been talking about ways that our group can help, since we don't have any candidates running in our district, where we can help in other places. So, District 2, District 5, if there are areas that we can help focus on with postcards or phone calls and things like that, can you give us that data? Or give us some targets, let's say.
We can give the data, I think. Calls and people, there are lots of things out there.
Well, I understand that. I mean, I know we can extrapolate it, but if they have already identified areas that need specific help or specific, some extra attention, let's say, is it possible to get some of that information from you so that we don't spend our time trying to figure it out?
Yeah. I want to be sure that we're understanding what information means. The ACLU on a national level is really intentional about how we collect, store, and share data.
Even if you can tell us locations, because we have voter lists,
yeah,
but we don't necessarily know that, okay, this little group over here doesn't have water or doesn't have, it's like if you can give us a location and an issue, maybe we can send postcards or we can start doing some phone calls saying, get out and
absolutely,
vote for, because it's very personal for me that I came from Georgia in 2020. So I was there for the national election. I was not there for the runoffs. Anyway, but I have a sister who did not vote because she was just apathetic and paralyzed and the whole bit. And I said to her, even if you don't vote for the national elections, even if you don't vote for the, state elections, it's like there's stuff going on about referendums on your parks and, the local stuff that affects you every day. So, and I'm just hoping that maybe if she'll go for something like that, while she's standing there, she'll go, I really just need to vote for a president. I need to, you know what I mean? And it's like, if I can get somebody to the polls to vote on their public service commission, who knows what might happen.
Right.
So, but it takes a lot for a group like us. I mean, we're willing, we've done postcard writing, we've done phone calls and stuff like that. But for us to figure out, okay, we don't necessarily have anything critical, in DeKalb County, but we're looking for other places to help out, especially this cycle.
Yeah, we
So-
can absolutely share those primary counties across the state and kind of where we need to focus our efforts. Absolutely.
Make that happen.
I was saying, I got an email from Terry Sewell, and she's our only Democrat in Washington, in Congress, and she helped put the money for the internet into our little areas. Well, that's gonna expire at the end of the month, and Republicans are not wanting to renew that. So she's fighting now for her district to get them to renew that,
Broadband access.
right, and, so, but it was her fight to get that money for her district in Alabama. And I hope people appreciate and know, even though we don't live in her district, that woman works hard.
She works
For
hard.
this state. And she's gotten the clean water, and she's it for Alabama in Washington. And so I always ask her if she has friends and get them to run, anybody.
Everybody needs to get somebody to run.
That's right. That's right.
Everybody needs to get somebody to run.
To run. Yes.
How can we get our high schoolers more involved? Like, how can we cultivate the 17-year-olds who will be 18 by November? That group. Just that question. How can we be more involved with them, and how can we get them more involved, with the ACLU and all that? ACLU more involved with, all that jazz. That's all.
Okay, that's one of the questions that we love over here. So right now with Project Move, Project Move, it's an acronym. Okay, so the acronym means making our voices echo, and so we're trying to target as many people as we can, specifically young folks. But young folks have a voice just like anyone else, and they need to be able to utilize that voice and have them to be a part of the process. So we have phone banks that we're doing. So we're actually starting our first official phone bank on July 18th.
Tomorrow.
Well, tomorrow
actually.
the 17th.
Tomorrow.
Yes.
And they are a bunch of high schoolers.
Yes, and a bunch of high schools who are going to be involved. And this is going to be their first time, but that's what we need. We need them to be involved right then and there. Yeah. So phone banking, canvassing as well, having them out in the community, having them to be a part of the process once again, because that is key for them. We're also focusing on college students as well. So I know for us, we're focusing on HBCUs that are here in the state. Alabama has the most HBCUs in the nation with 14. So we have 14 HBCUs, and we want to make sure that they are targeted so they can get to the polls as well. But although they are the priority, that doesn't mean we're not going to be going to other. Yeah, we're going to make sure that we target other areas as well, because people need to be involved in the process. So yes, we have our phone banking, we have our canvassing, and we can send you that information to get them involved because we need them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, we're gonna make it happen.
Paula, hold one second. Moreover to what Sam was saying, we're not just like employing our high school students and college students to come canvass and phone bank. Mm-hmm. We're paying them $20 an hour to do it,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So that's an incentive.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That is an incentive.
People work with that. I'll work for you. So what are you doing right now? What are they canvassing for? Just get out the vote?
Not yet. So
Why are you having this meeting? Because I was going to sign up for it. I think I already have a District 2 conference call tomorrow night, don't we? Anybody else signed up for that one? Call? I'm going to District 2. What? For District 2 for figures. But so what are y'all doing?
Yeah. So the phone bank survey, essentially the script that we'll put out and that they'll be calling, just ask questions like, what is stopping you from voting? When was the last time you voted? Okay. How often do you vote? Mm-hmm. What issues? What's the most important issue in your community? Mm-hmm. Is that healthcare? Is that crime? Is that environmental issues? Okay. And then who did you talk to about this issue in your community? What elected official, if any?
Will that information be available on your website? Of course, I don't need individuals' information, but like the, you know.
Yeah, we'll-
percentage of people enter this.
Yeah, so we'll put out a report. End of August. End of August, we'll put out our issue mining report just to say, here's what we called 200,000 voters across the state, and here's what we found out. So, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
Oh, y'all fine.
These are great questions.
Please.
In addition to that, I'm sorry, also,
Please.
we are also going to be doing some student workshops.
Mm-hmm.
So what we realize is that high school students specifically just don't understand the essence of voting. Again, I am an anomaly because I've always understood the essence of voting. I was paging in high school. I was doing like youth and government in middle school, like mock Senate trials, all the things that like, why was I doing that at 10? I don't know. But it's just kind of where nobody forced me to do it. My parents didn't force me to do it. It was just what I was interested in. And so that's just not the normal thing, right? But what is a normal thing in high schools is class president, prom queen, prom king. You have to vote for those things, right? And so, like, yeah, exactly. So like getting their feet wet when it comes to voting. So we'll be going in and building out these mock voting workshops where we'll use the idea that, okay, we're voting for prom king or prom queen or class president, but there has to be some integrity to this election. There's a process, there's a verification, like all the things that are happening at a local level, at a state level, at a federal level. We're going to do that at your high school and show you what this process looks and feels like so that you become familiar with it.
How can we get that here in Fort Payne? Like,
Let's talk. We've got a blueprint, we've got a toolkit, and I can share it with you. Yeah.
We talk about getting people to vote, and the people that I talk to that don't vote, they say, well, they don't do anything for me. Do you know, I mean, I don't think y'all do this, but do you know of anybody that tracks every vote or every bill that passes? For instance, the bill that passed for the infrastructure, how did that impact me? Does anybody trace that money? It goes to the state. We get money in Mentone all the time. We're getting a new fire department, $250,000. That came as part of that bill, but what part of it? Does anybody do a breakdown? To me, the reason they don't vote is they don't understand. And I don't think anybody does. I don't think anybody understands where the money came from. Where did the money come from? We just had a high-speed internet go through Mentone.
Wow.
Where did the money come from? They don't know that the money came. I mean, the money came from particular bills that were passed, and nobody understands that. No, what percent of it? 5%, 10%, 100%? We don't know where the money came from. And if you can't track the money, or when they pass this bill, how did that impact my medical bill? You know, exactly what it did. You got to talk about specifics in order to get people to vote, in my opinion. Everybody that I've ever talked to said, I don't vote because it has no impact on me. They do what they want to. And you've got to get people to vote. But to me, it's understanding. And I don't know anybody that tracks any of that. Does anybody track any of this bills that come out? I watch
Federal or state?
all of it. I want to know where the money came from.
All of it.
I want to know every bill that was passed.
single one.
What impact did that have on me,
Yeah.
on my community, on my town, on my state? And we do not know that. I watch Bloomberg News, and when you talk about immigration, they had one guy on there that talked about immigration on Bloomberg, and he said that if we had not had immigrants coming into this country, that inflation would be twice as high as it is now. And nobody understands that. I think we're basically. Hey, I don't care.
Some people do.
I don't care where it comes. If we don't get
Bloomberg helped me
we're not
keep my
able
money
to
right.
really understand the detailed issues and how it impacts us, how are we going to get people to vote and convince them that, hey, this was really good for you or this was really bad for you?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you all this. So when we're looking at bills that come through the legislative pipeline, what's attached to each bill is the fiscal note. So there's a fiscal note on each bill that comes through that shows the impact that it has when it essentially comes to the money. Now, sometimes it doesn't go into the specifics. It doesn't go as deep, which is, I know that can be frustrating. But in essence with that, there is something that is attached to within that fiscal note. I wish I could get deeper, but that's a really tough question. And I think that's something that we all need to look into.
Does
Yeah, I mean, there could possibly be some lobbyist firms. What we see traditional and like as a standard across the lobbying space is that we track the bills that we're working on. And because, like, specifically in Alabama, there were 135, about 135 bills that went through the state house this last session between February and June. Between February and June, there were 135 bills that went through the state house.
Yes.
There's absolutely no way for us to track every last one.
Yeah.
However,
Tracking it, it should be publicly available.
it is publicly available. They are publicly available online in the same way that we see them when we go to the state house, you know, in black and white. They are online with the fiscal notes attached.
Yes. So you can go to Allison in order to figure that out.
For instance, they paved the road, okay, going over to Henniger. Where did that money come from? I want to know what specifically. Is there any way to track that, and does anybody already do that?
There's a routine social media feed. I get it on Facebook, probably because of my alignment. It's not reaching the right people. It's very professional. They usually have someone in leadership from that part of the state. They included the North Alabama infrastructure bill providing the internet. They'll talk about another part of the state. They're very informative. I usually make a comment just to see how long it takes somebody to, as it goes around. But they're just not reaching the audience. They're not very professional.
What is it?
I'll put it on the
Facebook
But what you're talking about
Thank you,
tracking
Ray.
bills
Thank you so much, Mr. Ray.
is that, okay, like I worked for Head Start for 10 years. You can go onto the National Head Start website and you can go to what county and it's gonna break it down, 100% what that's gonna be used for. You cannot go to a county in the state of Alabama and see everything that's broke down. Because I'm gonna tell you why, we had all this COVID money. All these new positions that they made ended this year. Guess what? They stuck every one of those people into spots where new teachers could go because they couldn't pay them there. So that's the kind of stuff that you don't know where money goes because they didn't say, oh, this is COVID money, this is this money. Because you have certain schools like Plainview, I'm not sorry, I went to Plainview and graduated, but Plainview gets more money than any school in that county, in DeKalb County. And then you have we have Ruhama, that's just this little bitch school, doesn't have anything. So not everything's broke down like that.
What's fun is to educate, like the lineman that hooked up our farm tail. I said, well, I guess I can thank President Biden for this, and to say that in red DeKalb, Alabama. Yeah, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, what do we have?
He is the reason.
There might be in 89 up on Lookout Village Park, and that's 100% Biden's infrastructure program.
Yeah. The regular person, they don't know. Just like most people don't know Hillary Clinton did all the child care.
No, I think she did that, yeah.
So here's some thoughts for this coming year, we're trying to get out the voting.
Toby, do you want to go to the? Did you want to go to the mic?
But I have to stand up. And I'm old.
We need somebody running around.
With the mic, right?
With the mic.
Do that next time.
So what I'm thinking is that when we're trying to get out the vote in November, we don't have to know everything that was done for DeKalb County. But if we can find out some basics, you know, just the biggest things, and that use that as part of our sales pitch to get out the vote. If we're going to be calling people, you know, that, like I said, we don't have to know everything. But in a lot of these things, like Robert Adderholt is taking credit for the infrastructure bill. We don't have to know everything that was done. We have to know a few things that we could, and like, maybe if we could do a little bit of research and just find some real basics and write a letter to the editor of the Times Journal and say, these are the things that came from the, so if we can just get these basics. I'm sorry, that's okay.
Any last questions? This has been amazing. Thank y'all so much.
We love this.
We would absolutely relish in the opportunity to come back. So thank y'all.
Yes.
No more questions? Thank you so much. Thank y'all.
Okay.